indulging me. We'd like to hear from Nathan Tompkins. Nathan, come on up.
Just got a few here. This one's brand new, so please forgive me. It's called Nonviolent Communication. It actually started between a convo between Mike G and somebody else on his page. Good poetry is nonviolent communication. Words uttered in a microphone held upon a stage, backed by brass-knuckled tongues. In one hand, the poet holds a few sheets of paper, lined with words, painted phrases across white canvas. Good poetry is nonviolent communication. The audience watches as angered tones shout their curses across the dimly lit bar, backed by brass-knuckled tongues. Tears fill the voice, shatter the chords that strum from deep within the poet's vibrating throat, as good poetry is nonviolent communication. The poet reads the love of loss, the love of pain, hands shake with each tear-corrupted word, backed by brass-knuckled tongues. He stops. The crowd watches in post-traumatic silence before they slam their hands together and cheer, because good poetry is nonviolent communication, backed by brass-knuckled tongues. This is a true story from about 15 years ago. I just wrote it a few months ago. We all hated this bastard. He almost got us killed, too. We were thinking of the beach and down in Coos Bay, sneaker waves were coming on. We were running up the beach. He was telling us to get back to work. Moron. I call him Waldo because he looked like Waldo, only he was an idiot. Heads down, asses up! Screams the beach boss as we shoveled more oil-stained sand into the plastic bags. His Waldo-esque beanie ball bounces as he shakes his head in the ocean breeze that shoves its damp, frigid fingers up the beach as he sits on a driftwood log. Heads down, asses up indeed. My Tyvek suit peeks through the ragged split seams of my yellow disposable rain gear, splattered with bunker seed. We stop for a breather. I grab my shovel and empty bags, walk up the beach to the sand grass beds that line the shore, and I drop my things, reach in a pocket for my tobacco pouch, full of ballyshack, and I roll myself a cigarette, light it up. As I stand there smoking, I look at the coasty chopper that hovers over the bow section of the new Carissa, and watch balls of jelly napalm fire dribble from this hose as it falls in the once full tanks of oil, the oil that now sits under the Pacific or is scattered along the shoreline. It reminds me of when I was a kid, smoking grass as I burned rubbish in a rusted iron barrel, and the plastic, how it would burn, liquefy, drip over the side into the dirt, or further down into the angry red ash embers of the trash fire. Hey you! Get your ass back to work! No fucking smoking on the beach! Waldo yells at me as he sucks on a butt, chugs filtered Marlboro Light 100 nicotine smoke into his lazy lungs as he sits there on the half-rotten log. I surreptitiously flip him off, grab my gear and get back to work. This is called Persimmons. I walk down the paved stone paths of the Lansu Chinese Gardens, a place of serenity and beauty in the middle of downtown Portland, and just outside the walls, panhandlers beg for a quarter to buy their next pint or their next bag. Prossies rent out their mouths. Dealers sell their junk. But in here, you could forget. The blue skyline with faded clouds keep these stones dry as the sun warms the back of my neck as I tread over covered footbridges and breezeways around the pond upon which pink water lilies bloom. And then I spy her, the persimmon tree. Naked branches stretch over the carpet. A red, yellow, brown strips of leaves crinkle beneath the touch of my foot. In one cupped barked hand she holds a lone persimmon fruit, and she waits for me to reach out my fingertips and pluck it from her wooden grasp. And I raise it to my lips, Light breaths graze the skin as my teeth slowly pierce its yielding flesh, and the sweet juice floats over my tongue, slides out of my mouth, and drips down the corner of my chin. The tree shudders with a gust of wind, and I look at her spasming branches and smile, mouth full of her fruit. It's called Highways and Heartaches. I walked down many a foot-worn, cracked pavement highway to the battered, ivy-cloaked, wrought iron gates of a heartache. At an intersection just outside of town, the street signs full of rusted shotgun holes. The ground is littered with ancient red shells. And to the right is the sound of play yard swings, the shouted laughter of children, the moans, the sighs of microwave bedroom romance. To the left is the barest strings of a heart as she fondles the light tune of her strings. So that is the direction I go, to follow the silvery seductive tone of her siren's song. It's where the dilapidated houses barely stand, lean as if half drunk as their roofs decay, sink down to sponge-damp rotted floors. It's where Main Street lies empty, windows busted in by kids tossing stones. They look like eyes damaged, blackened by a drunkard's whiskey-raged fist. It's where cars rust, mounted on wooden blocks, almost hidden by weed-infested, overgrown lawns. Abandoned, left to lie in the rain and snow, left to die, baked in a desert's dry heat. Yes, I walked many a foot-worn, cracked pavement highway to the battered, ivy-cloaked, wrought iron gates of a heartache. And so I will continue to walk alongside these faded white and yellow lines, past the next jaded intersection, until I reach the gates of the next town, over the hill, past the winter barren trees, to the summer lands where sunflowers bloom. Slancha, thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. I also want to mention that Nathan takes pretty beautiful photographs, and it looks like he might be taking a few tonight. I want to invite everyone to pull out your cell phone with me and take a look at it. Find whatever button on it makes it turn itself off completely. And do it now. If it takes a couple of seconds, it'll be okay. Because this is the first of 2 public service announcements I'm going to make, so you're going to have a minute to do this. I'm turning mine off all the way to you. They've taken over so much that they're unpredictable, so it's not always people being rude, sometimes it's people not knowing what their phone is getting ready to do. Alright? So we won't make a big deal out of it, we'll just all make sure that they're off. Okay, so the other public service announcement is that the lights that are usually available to us in the parking lot outside are out temporarily, so Mel wanted me to let you know it's pretty dark out there. If anybody would feel more comfortable, whether they leave at the break or whether they leave at the end of the whole thing, with having someone walk them out there, we'll find somebody that's willing to.
I need somebody to hold my hand across the parking lot.
Yeah, maybe we could have Nathan scream you to your car, and then probably no one will fucking
New service you can provide.
I think a few people scurried into the darkness during Nathan's reading, so maybe we'll use him to get them out of the way. So there's a great trend in the United States of towns and cities deciding that they need a poet laureate. You know, and sometimes people need an explanation of what a poet laureate is. I mean, to me, the most basic explanation that I can think of is someone who's kind of an ambassador for poetry, someone who's going to represent poetry to the public. Recently here in Washington State, the town of Yakult decided that they would like to have a poet laureate, and they named our next reader to be their poet laureate, and he's reading here tonight for the first time. So I'd like to welcome him for the first time to Ghost Town Poetry Open Mic, Patrick Knowles from Yakult, Washington.
Thank you very much, Christopher. I'd like to announce a family reading family poetry reading and writing workshop in Yakult, Washington. It's the fourth Thursday of every month. It's at the library in Yakult. It starts at 6 and ends at 8 o'clock. If you don't write poetry and you have a poem that you really love, bring it and read it. Would love to hear it. With that being said, I think I have 2 poems here with about, I've had 2 strokes and in 2004, and sometimes my brain, I know what I want to say, but my brain won't let me say it. I have two poems about war, soldiers. The first one is an acrostic alliteration poetry. Are you familiar with it? It's called Imagined. When I wrote it, it was Imagine, but at the end of it, I thought, there's got to be one more line. And it turned out to be with a D. So, imagine, the world is at global peace. Mess kits put aside, GIs standing at ease. Amidst no bullets, no shrapnel flying, God sends peace, no one mangled or dying. Immediate peace, no throwing of flames, no one gets burnt, no throwing of blame. Ending all wars with trust in God's name, dead are all buried at rest in their graves. This one, my wife and I went to an ice cream and pie social in Amboy, Washington, and it was to support the veterans. The proceeds went to support the veterans. While we were there, this guy was up on the stage playing guitar and singing, and everybody was talking. No one listened to the guy singing. I mean, the talking was louder than the guy singing and playing. And I thought, how rude, man. It inspired me to write this. To all veterans who fight in foreign lands. To honor all the veterans who have fought in foreign lands, I'd like to say thank you. Especially to the soldiers who cannot shake our hands. We are forever indebted to the POWs, the MIAs, to all veterans home without their hands, no feet, no legs, no arms, and to the heroes who've died fighting for our freedom inside foreign lands. There cannot be enough thank yous given for the loss in wars that our young men and women fight, but at least give them a salute with your hand, give them a shake if they can, give them and let them keep that right. In the war of World War I and II, the Korean conflict, the fighting in Vietnam, the war called Desert Storm, then Baghdad, now Afghanistan, always protect, never forget. When will it ever end? To all veterans of war, I say this, thank you. Although I know that's just being kind. But it's also for the fathers, the mothers, the sisters, the brothers, the cousins, the aunts, the uncles, and the grandparents left grieving. For the ones mangled, buried, or left behind. Thank you.
you, Patrick. I'm glad you finally made it here. And Patrick left a few copies of the flyer for the event that he mentioned in Yakult. If you want to go out there or want to pass it on to a friend, we got 2 or 3 copies over here on the table where we leave materials like that. For those of you that are new, anybody that has anything community related, it doesn't even have to be a poetry event, who wants other people to have access to it, you're welcome to use our little table. We'll even move Dennis's scarf. So, our featured reader tonight is Washington State Poet Laureate Kathleen Flanagan, who I don't know very well. I've seen her read a few times. I'll know her better tomorrow. Yeah, she'll be staying with us until she heads back. Over the past 2 years, she's been traveling all over the state and doing something that's really close to my heart, which is meeting with as many students as she possibly can, and has some books for sale here at the reading tonight. And one of the things that I really admire about Kathleen is that she set up a really great website called The Far Field, right? Isn't that what it's called? That can give a person the lay of the land for Washington State as far as the publishers that are here, the reading series that are here. She was kind enough to mention us on there. So someone who wanted to know about what's happening throughout the entire state they have a great place that it looks really great and it's easy to navigate, and many of the people that we love and respect are represented there. So I think that's an accomplishment too. And so one of the things I really wanted to do was to get Kathleen here to Ghost Town while she was still the Poet Laureate, and then I heard that her schedule opened up and didn't realize that actually this is the last month that Kathleen will be the Poet Laureate for Washington State, so it just really worked out nicely timing-wise because we were going to be celebrating, and also, I just think I'd really like to thank her on behalf of, Washington State for being a great laureate for the past 2 years. So, thank you. Now I get to hear a little bit of what she's about, and let's please welcome Washington State Poet Laureate Kathleen Flanagan. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for dinner. It was delicious. Thank you, Mel, for hosting us, and Christopher for inviting me. I'm just delighted to be here. I had a great trip down, and it's just wonderful to see this community. You're just clearly very connected with each other and supporting each other, so that's great. I get to come up twice, right? So I thought what I would do this time around is I wanted to share a few poems from around the state with you, maybe some voices that you know or don't know yet and will like knowing. And one of the things I really wanted to start with was, if I take off my Poet Laureate hat for a moment and put on my editor hat, I am actually an editor at Floating Bridge Press, and I hear all these great poems, and we never see poems from Vancouver. I know you're more connected in with the Portland community, and I live in Seattle. And so what I want to do is invite you all to think about submitting chapbooks for our Floating Bridge Press annual chapbook competition. And last year's winner was actually Jody Marion, who is a Vancouver poet. So I just want to encourage you to consider that. And I thought, as a little means of communicating that we want you, I would read a poem out of our annual publication. So we have this chapbook competition. It's open for submissions between November 1st and March 1st. And what we do is we choose one winner for the chapbook, but then we cull through all those poems and we publish individual poems in Floating Bridge Review, which comes out once a year. And they can be previously published. So I hope you'll think about that. And I thought I would read a poem from the book just to give you a kind of a sense. This is actually a sonnet by a local poet, a Washington poet named Michael Spence. He's a bus driver in Seattle. He writes a lot about driving buses and things. And this is a sonnet, an actual formal sonnet called Intersection. The roads have grown religious. Crosses sprout by narrow streets as bent as paper clips. They line the off-ramps exiting from doubt. Along the edge of last unscheduled trips, bouquets blunt corners where faith collides with physics. Names are fixed to photographs of faces when time still let them smile. Beside the sticks, candles gutter. Guardrails, buckled in half, mimic the altar of a church whose walls are absent. Like a choir, sparse and ragged, crows that pick at bits of shattered glass squall as if declaring some borders open as others close. And death, with these tilted X displays, becomes a surveyor staking out its causeways. They're not all formal like that at all. I mean, it's unusual, you know, to have a formal poem, but I do enjoy that one. I'll read you one more. This is by John Whalen, who is a Spokane poet, and this is called First Date. Your grandmother's ancient cousin grabbed me with nervous fingers. We danced to the beat of the whole clan clapping their thighs. She liked me. In Olive Bonner's Ferry, she said nobody owned a nose broken like mine. Your family had a notion I invented the remote. Gathering in front of a widescreen TV with vodka in our orange juice, everybody took turns punching channels and squeezing my nose. Ah, home-fried chicken and greasy napkins between great-great-aunts on the couch. By the time the trucks were packed for the Combine Demolition Derby in Lind, I was one of the crew. Keeper of whiskey for the trip, they said. So, I hope you will think about sending us work.
It's funny because I'm actually from Bonners Ferry.
Are you? Awesome. Do you go to the demolition derby?
No, but I know people who take part in it.
Okay, and here we are so close to Portland, so I wanted to read this poem by Christopher Howell. Christopher Howell is a wonderful poet from Spokane. He teaches at Eastern Washington University. Beautiful lyric poet, but he also occasionally writes narrative poems. And this is a poem that speaks to me because it's about eating Chinese food on 82nd Avenue. And when I was a kid growing up, we used to come visit my cousins in Portland, my grandmother. And the big thing was, if we got here early enough on Friday night, we could go out for Chinese food on 82nd. So I know these places because I used to eat there too. Anyway, it's called Dinner Out. We went to either the Canton Grill or the Chinese Village, both of them on 82nd, among the car lots and discount stores and small nests of people waiting hopelessly for the bus. I preferred the Canton for its black and bright red sign, with the dragon leaping out of it, sneezing little pillows of smoke. And inside, the beautiful green half-shell booths, glittery brass encrusted lamps swinging above them. What would I have? Sweet and sour? Chow mein with little wagon wheel shaped slices of okra and those crinkly noodles my father called deep fried worms? Fried rice? Among such succulence, what did it matter? We could eat till we were glad and full, the whole family sighing with the pleasure of it. And then the tea. All of this for about $6 total. My father for that once in a while feeling flush in the glow of our happy faces and asking me, how are you doing, son? Fine, Dad. Great, really, in the light of that place, almost tasting the salt and bean paste and molasses, nearly hearing the sound of the car door opening before we climbed in together and drove, though we hadn't far to go. I'm going to read. So I want to read you a poem by somebody who's close by in Stevenson, Washington. I gave myself the assignment to go to all 39 counties, which I have accomplished. I'm very excited about that. One of my states, thank you. I could not have done it without the librarians. The librarians let me in. Not only did they let me into their libraries, which are often like the cultural center of small towns, they also gave me connections into the schools so that I could go into the schools, and so they were my connection, and they were also my venue, and I couldn't have done it without them. So as it turns out, Mario Milosevic is a librarian at Stevenson Library, but he's also a poet. And I wanted to share one of his poems. He kind of blew me away. I was really impressed with him. This is called When I Was. When I was a bear, I filled the world. My paws were wide, and I walked large. I ate all summer and slept all winter, dreaming of the time when I was a dragonfly, and I wove the world. Darting through air, skimming over grass, hovering on water, my compound eyes embroidering my dreams of the time when I was a turtle and I carried the world. Walking slowly with the weight, squat body on 4 thick legs, hard shell holding me in, keeping my dreams of the time when I was a salmon and I fed the world. Sleek skin sliding down river throats, pink flesh nourishing my cousins. I swam upstream where death took me, and I swallowed my dreams of the time when I was a tree and I held the world. Roots gripping soil, branches embracing sky, my vision encompassing dreams of the time when I was a raven and I sang the world. Single note struck from my throat, pushed into air, the sound a call to listen to the unseen and honor my dreams of the time when I was a bear, when I was a dragonfly, when I was a turtle, a salmon, a tree, when I was a raven. So I'll do just 2 more now. I'm going to read a poem by Elizabeth Austin, who's a wonderful Seattle area poet. She does poetry segments on KUOW, the local NPR station, every week. And so she's done a really wonderful job of kind of publicizing the idea of poets and poetry in the Seattle area, which is, a wonderful thing to do. So this is a poem of hers I love. It's called On Punctuation. Not for me the dogma of the period, preaching order and a sure conclusion. And no, not for me the prissy formality or tight-lipped fence of the colon. And as for the semicolon, call it what it is, a period slumming with the commas. A poser at the bar, feigning liberation with one hand, tightening the leash with the other. Oh, give me the headlong, run-on fragment dangling its feet over the edge. Give me the sly comma with its come-hither wave, teasing all the characters on either side. Give me the ellipsis, not just a gang of periods, a trail of possibilities. Or give me the sweet, interrupting dash, the running, leaping, joining dash, all the voices gleeing out over one another. Oh, if I must punctuate, give me the yippee of the exclamation point. Give me the curling, cupping curve mounting the period with voluptuous uncertainty. One more. I wanted to read a poem by Peter Pereira, who is a very good friend of mine, wonderful poet. He's also a doctor, and so he writes a lot about his work with, he works with a lot of immigrant populations, and this poem is actually a title poem from his book, What's Written on the Body. I think it's a wonderful example of one of his, I call them doctor poems. He writes other great poems too that are more around language and wordplay, but this is a doctor poem. What's written on the body? He will not light long enough for the interpreter to gather the tatters of his speech, but the longer we listen, the calmer he becomes. He shows me the place where his daughter had rubbed with a coin, violaceous streaks, raising a skeletal pattern on his chest. He thinks he's been hit by the wind. He's worried it will become pneumonia. In Cambodia, he'd be given a special tea, a prescriptive sacrifice, the right chance to say. but I know nothing of his chai or karma. I ask him to lift the back of his shirt so I may listen to his breathing. Holding the stethoscope's bell, I'm stunned by the whirl of icons and script tattooed across his back, their teal green color, the outline of a map which looks like Cambodia, perhaps his village, a lake, then a scroll of letters and a watery signature. I ask the interpreter what it means. It's a spell asking his ancestors to protect him from evil spirits. She is tracing the lines with her fingers. And those who meet him for kindness. The old man waves his arms and a staccato of diphthongs and nasals fills the room. He believes these words will lead his spirit back to Cambodia after he dies. I see, I say, and rest my hand on his shoulder. He takes full, deep breaths, and I listen, touching down with the stethoscope from his back to his front. He watches me with anticipation, as if awaiting a verdict. His lungs are clear. You'll be fine, I tell him. It's not your time to die. His shoulders relax, and he folds his hands above his head as if in blessing. Archon, he says, all better now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. We'll be hearing some of Kathleen's own writing after our break, and she has brought 2 books for sale. If we run out of books, we do have more copies of the books. So if that happens, let me or Kathleen or Mel know, and we'll get some more if we need them. And please, there's plenty of food back there. I hope that you're in the mood to buy some books and some coffee, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes for more of Kathleen Flanagan. Thanks so much for being with us.